What up, y'all? Welcome to Rolling the Bond Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Moore. We're back for another podcast, Wednesday morning podcast for you all. That's when it's going to be out, at least, hopefully, if you're watching this. But whenever you're watching this, hope your weekend was good. Hopefully you're able to watch some racing at Bristol. Bristol, baby, such a cool facility, such a iconic place. They're going to be having a baseball game there. I'm going to be at that baseball game. Can't wait to go to that. Chandler Smith won his first truck race with Fritman Motorsports, dominating that race, I would feel. I felt like had some hiccups here and there, got past there at the end of stage 2. But then, Xfinty Series race was dominated by Kyle Larson. It was the Kyle Larson show. And then same thing, Cup race was the Kyle Larson show. Kyle Larson's finished second in the truck race. If he just finished one spot better, could have swept the weekend, been only the second driver to sweep all 3 series. It would have been also the second time someone would have swept Bristol, because Kyle Busch has swept Bristol for all 3 series twice. Larson almost did it at Homestead, but had a late race caution. He was smoking the field in the Xfinity Series race, like 14-second lead. Had a late race caution, a late race restart. Didn't have a great restart. Lost the race off that restart, which really stinks. But yeah, everyone's talking about the Cup race and how bad it was. And I agree, guys. It was just sad. It was disappointing. It was frustrating. I mean, I could easily go on and complain, and I'm going to do some complaining in an episode about this car and this racing. It just stinks because Bristol, to me, hasn't lived up to the hype. Maybe in the sense that, last year when I went to the Bristol night race, the pre-race was so exciting, so iconic, so traditional. Like the tradition of the Bristol night races is so special that it was so much build-up. It was a good crowd there. And the race just never delivered. And that was the sad part. Here, the Cup race had its first ever caution-free stage. Stage 1 was the first caution-free stage. We thought we were going to get what we got last spring with tire wear, because in practice, Saturday, it was cooler outside, there was no sun out, and we saw tires start to cord in the first 40 laps. So we thought we were going to get that type of race, but ended up being warmer on Sunday. The sun was out like a 15-degree. It was like 15 degrees warmer than it was Saturday. In the first 40 laps, the drivers were running like 40% throttle because they were worried about these tires, because no one really knew exactly what was going to be, what was going to happen really. Were the tires going to cord? But we ran 40 laps, nothing happened to the tires. The track was starting to take a little bit of rubber. We saw Larson pass Bowman. Bowman led the first. Let's see here. Bowman led the first. 39 laps before getting past on lap 40. And then Larson, he ran like lap 60. Larson just took off. He was no longer saving tires, and he just got out there to a good, almost front stretch, a straightaway lead at Bristol. And then really, Larson was the guy to beat the rest of the race, really. We had, a caution-free stage 1, had some pit stops, but tires were not really wearing. They could have ran a whole other stage on those tires. Denny Hamlin believes on his podcast they could have ran an entire race on one set of tires. They had NASCAR gave them an extra set of tires because they were worried about them, cording tires really quickly. And that never happened because it seems like they came out with this tire in the 2023 Bristol night race. So it's been a tire they've been using, I guess. But, last spring we saw it cording, but it seems like this tire is a temperature sensitive tire. It seems like now if it's cold outside, it's going to cord. If it's warm outside, it's not going to barely wear. It's just disappointing. It's frustrating. The inconsistency just really stinks. But talking about this race, stage 1 was caution-free. Really nothing really happened in that race. We saw some mistakes on pit road with Kyle Busch, SVG speeding. Stage 2 was more of Kyle Larson dominating. He would get the lap traffic, and that was really the most exciting part of the race. I felt like when Larson was just weaving through, looking like a snake out there in lap traffic, trying to pass guys, and guys trying to stay in the lead lap. We did see our only caution, our actual caution, because there was only 3 cautions in this race. 3 cautions, guys. 2 for the stage breaks and 1 for incident. It was SVG and Cody Ware getting together. Like, SVG had the opportunity to get to the bottom, and Cody Ware gave him a little bit of space, and like Cody Ware kind of pinched SVG. I think SVG spun out. I think Cody Ware might have spun out as well. I don't remember that from the replay. But then that led to a caution, and then pit stops. The only thing from that, the big storylines from the race was, a scary incident on pit road. We saw John Hernandez's tire. They made a pit stop, and his tire was not tight, and it led to a tire rolling down pit road. Right when he fired out of the box, the tire came off, and it was rolling towards Daniel Suarez's pit crew, pit box. They were servicing Daniel Suarez's car, and this tire is moving. It's rolling pretty good, and the tire changer, the rear tire changer, just gets out of the way when this tire hits the back end of Daniel Suarez's car hard. It bounces, hits the fuel man. It was scary wreck. We also saw later in this race, Carson Hosfar. They were running like top 5, then they had the only green flag pit stops of the day in stage 3. They had a bad pit stop, couldn't get that right rear tire. I think it was left rear tire on fast. Had some struggle on that pit stop, and just really, it's surprising with this. We've been seeing a lot of loose wheels. I thought this was going to make loose wheels less frequent or less of a thing, but now it's the competitiveness on pit road, and it's just one massive lug nut. But if you don't get that one lug nut tightened up, well, now the entire tire has the opportunity to get off. When in the old Gen 6 car, or even the Truck Series or Xfinty Series now, they have 4 lug nuts. So there's a chance that one could be loose, but there could still be 3 tight. So there's still a chance that tire could stay on there. So I do think it makes it a lot more dangerous now, I feel like, when a loose wheel does get, if a loose wheel comes off, that tire can easily, it's just roaming on the racetrack, a car can easily hit that tire and it can go somewhere. It can go in the grandstand. So NASCAR, I think, came out with this new single lug nut to hopefully create, one's going to be faster pit stops, but maybe less chances to get loose wheels, but it doesn't seem like that is the case now. It seems like loose wheels are becoming more and more frequent now with this new massive lug nut when they came out with this new car in 2022. So I think NASCAR, I don't know, they're definitely not going to change the way that is. They're not going to change the style of the lug nut or make it 4 lug nuts. That's going to be a whole new revamp of the car if they were doing that. So there's really nothing they can do unless they made it easier to put the lug nut on or something. I don't know, because it's kind of like this whole mechanism where there's this big button. So once the lug nut goes over this button, it kind of locks the lug nut in. If it doesn't go fully in, well, now the lug nut's over top this button, so it doesn't lock the wheel in, so it gets a chance for the wheel to be loose. But yeah, definitely something that I think NASCAR needs to maybe address in the future, but I don't know how they do that and what they would change. They would have to really do a whole overhaul in this car. I feel like if they were going to change the way that the single lug nut is, if they were going to go to 4 lug nuts again, I don't know. But that was a really scary incident. That was really the only big thing from the race. Besides that, Kyle Larson just dominated this race. We saw in stage 3, he pitted early. I think Hamlin pitted early too, and then we saw Ryan Blaney stay out there, and he ran 48 laps. He led 48 laps in this race. Humming for a caution, we saw Reddick and Bubba Wallace also stay out there, but it didn't work out. They all had a pit, and then the lead came back to Larson. We had chances in this cut race where Hamlin was getting close to Larson because lap traffic was holding up Larson a little bit, but then once Larson got out to some clean traffic, and then Denny had to pass the lap traffic that Larson just passed, Denny had no chance. But yeah, just congratulations to Kyle Larson. What a drive, impressive drive. He won the Bristol night race, and now he wins this race in both styles or dominant fashion. And I know a lot of people want to talk about this race because it was not a great race. It was sad to see, but look, guys, we've been dealing with this race car for a long, long time. It's an ongoing conversation. It seems like NASCAR does not want to make bold enough and aggressive changes to this race car. The only big changes we have made are trying to make softer tires, which I think that's important. It's the one thing, the tires are the one thing touching the racing surface. In the early stages of this car, we realized this car was terrible at short tracks especially. They did some modifications to the spoiler. They took away parts and pieces from the diffuser to try to take away downforce. But those really didn't make a change. So NASCAR's solely been relying on Goodyear, their tire manufacturer, to come out with softer tires. And Goodyear's done a great job. did a great job. And yes, they can easily go softer, but can they go softer? I don't know. Because right now, Goodyear is all, they used to have these nastier oils and things in these tires to help these tires wear. Now they're going green. So the stuff they make the tires with are different. Also, the tire is bigger. It's more narrower now. There's a bigger tire now. So Goodyear had to change their whole style of philosophy to suit this new next-gen car. So, Goodyear has struggled to find a tire that can really wear. Because we've gotten tires that wear, but they don't wear, like they almost like plateau and stuff. But I'm also tired of everyone blaming Goodyear like it's Goodyear's fault why we don't have good racing. The car is I think it's one of the worst cars. I think it's the worst car NASCAR's design. Because, look, the car drives incredible. But, they got bigger, wider tires, bigger brakes than the old car, and less power. How is that supposed to put on good racing? It doesn't make sense to me. And the thing is NASCAR seems to not want to add horsepower. The one thing NASCAR hasn't done and took a big swing at is the horsepower, because they're saying it's supposed to add cost, and it's going to add cost to the engine builders, all this stuff. I just don't get it. This is what Alton Sawyer, who is the VP of NASCAR competition for NASCAR, that's what he said about Bristol. He was on Sirius XM. We will continue to look at our short track package. We're not going to sleep on this. We're going to go to work, and we'll continue to work with the industry to see what adjustments and changes that need to be made. Sawyer, I guess, this is from Stephen Toronto. Sawyer also mentioned about Goodyear being a particular thing to continue to work on tire fall off. So, and also another thing he said is they're continuing to have talks with drivers during driver meetings to talk about drivers, what they think they can fix. Denny Hamlin was recently on Sirius XM and talked about really trying to add horsepower and maybe going to a 750 horsepower package, which would only be around 100 more horsepower, something that maybe wouldn't be a big cost change. But teams have brought up that really the engine builders have not changed. They're not paying less, or it's not cheaper for the teams for the engines, because the engines are still the same engines. They can still produce a lot of horsepower, but NASCAR reduces the horsepower with the taper spacer. But also a lot of fans, forget about the car, they're talking about Bristol. Bristol has not put on great racing. Even with the Gen 6 car, it was hit or miss. We had some good races in 2020 during the COVID with Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, also 2021 with Kevin Harvick, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott as well. Those were great races. I remember going to my first ever Bristol night race. It was in 2014. I remember that race. Brad, my favorite driver, was running really well. He finished second, almost won the race. But I remember Kevin Harvick wrecking Denny Hamlin, and Denny Hamlin getting out of his car and throwing his Hans device. That was a super memorable race. I really enjoyed that race. But then I went back in 2015. I don't really remember much from that race at all, besides, Brad ran sixth, I believe, my favorite driver. And it was also Jeff Gordon's final Bristol night race in the number 24. I don't remember anything from 2016 or 2017. I think 2018 or 2019. That was when Kyle Busch wrecked early in the race and then came the whole way from the back to the front with a damaged race car. I think ever since SMI and Bristol Motor Speedway reconfigured the banking at Bristol, Bristol used to be known for a one-groove track. Everyone around the bottom, it was a bump and run, that's how you passed. Well, for some reason, SMI got rid of that, and they wanted to go to a multi-groove, progressive banking track to hopefully create more opportunities for passing, and it seems like that's what killed Bristol. That's why we no longer have 160,000 people going to the race. That's why they had a great, long sellout history at Bristol where there was a massive thousands. I think they had like 100,000 people waiting list to go and watch a race at Bristol in person. And that all went away. And it seemed like it all went away because of the progressive banking decision by SMI for no reason. What made Bristol so great was the one groove bump and run. So I think there's some blame for this race. You have to blame Bristol because even in the Gen 6, it was hit or miss. So I think personally, is SMI going to want to continue this type of racing at Bristol? I'm not sure. Depending on, ticket sales and attendance can change. A lot of fans, Bristol's also a concrete track. I don't know if these tires don't seem to wear much on concrete tracks. Bristol has also not been known for high wear either. So does Bristol go to a pavement surface? But they say the reason that that Bristol hasn't gone to asphalt is because it would tear up the asphalt more quicker and all this type of stuff. So I'm not an engineer. I'm not going to try and act like I know what I'm talking about, what kind of stuff. But I think there's a lot of things to look at. Why this race was not great. I think you have to look at the racetrack, but also you got to continue to look at the car and the way the car was designed. Denny Hamlin brought up when they were getting ready to have their first season with this car, and Denny Hamlin was in the owners' meeting. He asked John Probst, who is the senior vice president of competition for NASCAR, and asked John Probst to his face, "Are you sure this car works? Are you sure this car is going to be ready to race? We have opportunity here to create a car that's good for all racing." And John Probst said to Denny Hamlin, "Yep, we're good to go. This is going to be a good car." Well, 2 months before the season, they finally put another car side by side with this other next-gen car and realized they had a massive issue with the racing product. You can't pass. And then he also talked about on his podcast, Denny Hamlin, that 10 years ago when NASCAR was testing, NASCAR continued to reduce the horsepower in these engines during this testing, and pretty much said, I guess, to Denny Hamlin, that the goal was to make you guys race closer. We want the racing closer. You guys may look like you guys can pass, you really can't. And that's the thing I get so frustrated with this car. I never have ever heard a driver have to complain and say they can't pass. Okay, if someone tells you that, it's just because the car's not fast enough or they're not good enough. But really, it's just the way that the car is designed and the speed. The auto racing analytics said the final 50 laps in the Cup race at Bristol have been based on fourth quarter medium lap speed data alone. This is roughly when the top 15 fastest cars would have finished. And it shows Kyle Larson and Ryan Blaney running around the same speeds. But Blaney finished 6th. But then, and you can't see it on my podcast, but there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cars all bunched up on the track. All bunched up. That just shows you how close they were on speed. There was also 4 cars all bunched up on the screen showing that, the lap times. This car was meant for parity. They wanted cars to be closer on speed. But what we realized is that, 2022 and 2023, we saw a lot of different winners. And we saw like 16, 17 different winners. But now what we realize is that as the years go by and NASCAR continues not to make any changes to the rule packages, the big teams, Hendrick, Gibbs, Penske, are the ones that are continuing to win these races. Right now, 9 races into the season, we got Joe Gibbs Racing that has 5 wins. Hendrick has 3, and then Wood Brothers, which Wood Brothers is not Penske, but Wood Brothers' car is getting prepared at a Penske shop. So you can kind of highlight that in a Penske car too. The big teams are only teams that have won races this year. So the parity what NASCAR was shooting for worked out for a couple of years, but certainly is going back to the old ways where the big teams are winning the races. So it's just disappointing, guys. And the last thing I'm going to say, look, the racing with this car is not good. I've been saying this the entire podcast. But the thing that frustrates me the most about this car is that it's a sports car. It's a sports car. It's not a stock car. To me, NASCAR took away the uniqueness of their sport in their Cup Series because they used to have a unique car, nothing like any other car out there in any motorsports. Well, now what they did is they went over to IMSA, talked to IMSA people, went over to Australia and talked to the people that run the V8 supercars, and they took a little bit from everything, and now they built this car. And now they think that a sports car can put on good racing. SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen, who raced in the V8 supercar series, he talks about the Xfinty Series car driving like a freaking forklift, and then he talks about how he's a lot more comfortable in the Cup Series car because it's more, foreign to what he's driven all his life in the V8 supercar series. And I'm going to say again, I don't think this car has put on it's put on a couple good mile-and-a-half races, but it's ruined this Super Speedway package. It's ruined road course racing. It's ruined short track racing. It's just, to me, this car has not put on good racing. It's ruined racing at the Cup Series level. And I know this is very negative, but it's just how it is. And it's going to be up to NASCAR, the higher up to NASCAR, to make a decision. Do they want to keep the racing? Are they happy with this type of racing? Are they going to really swing to make changes? to make massive, massive changes. We'll see. So that's it. I ranted a long time about this car, and I'm just going to move on now. A lot of drivers had their own thoughts and opinions. I think there's a lot of things that NASCAR can do to make this racing better with this car, but it's going to be up to NASCAR. Sunday's Xfinity Series race was kind of another domination by Kyle Larson. He led. Let's see when he led. 277 laps. Carson Kvapil for second, third, and Justin Allgaier, fourth, Sammy Smith, fifth, Brandon Jones, sixth, Jesse Love, seventh, Ryan Sieg, eighth, Corey Heim, ninth, Christian Eckes, and 10th, Dean Thompson. Yeah, man, 277 laps and 300. Larson dominated this race. And I love what Kyle Larson said about dominating this race. Kyle Larson was on the Happy Hour podcast talking to Kevin Harvick, and he says one of the reasons he loves driving Xfinity, one of the things that motivates Kyle Larson about driving the Xfinity Series race is because his goal is to embarrass the field. He wants to embarrass the Xfinity Series, and he wants to embarrass NASCAR, he said, because he doesn't like that NASCAR doesn't allow Cup Series drivers to race in the Xfinity Series anymore. Now, if you're a full-time Cup Series driver, you can only run 5 Xfinity Series races a season and 5 Truck Series races a season. And he wants to, the reason he likes driving it is because he likes to tell and prove to the Xfinity Series drivers that they're not on his level, and they're not on the level of the Cup Series level. And I love that, because I love watching Xfinity Series races when the Cup Series drivers race, because it was a lot more exciting. It also kind of told you, okay, is this young, talented guy that someone's hyping up, are they on that Cup Series level? And you would see what they were, and you would see what they weren't. And I love that Kyle Larson, people, he talked about it made me cocky to say that, but I love that Kyle Larson is saying that, because I think it's ridiculous that NASCAR, to me, I get why they did it and why they don't want Cup Series drivers to be in these races, because they don't want these Cup Series drivers to win all these races, but I think it's good for the Xfinity Series, and it helps these younger drivers kind of see where they match up against some of this Cup Series talent. I think it'd be better off if NASCAR let these guys race, because we don't really know, what level is Connor Zilchak? He's being hyped up to go Cup Series racing next year. Is he that level, right? I think he's on that level in the Xfinity, in the road course series, but oval-wise, I don't know. There's a lot of drivers we don't really know if they're on that level. I think if they got to race against Cup Series drivers more, we would kind of get a better idea of what level they're really on. If they are Cup Series level, and also Kyle Larson brought up that it suits the Xfinity Series drivers more, it helps prepare them more for the Cup Series if they're competing against Cup Series drivers in the Xfinity Series, but also the cars are totally different, so it may not really matter. But I have no issue with Kyle Larson saying what he said. I think he's right for what he said. But in this race, we saw a massive wreck early in stage. Let's see here. What wreck was it? It was early in stage 1. It was a massive wreck. We saw Sean Crean get racing with Jed Burton. He spun out in the middle of the track, and then here comes cars trying to miss Sean Crean, and all of a sudden here comes Brandon Poole in the 41, tries to miss him, but makes massive contact with him. It was a big hit. The whole side of the 44 car was destroyed. Sean Crean got out of his car and just kind of just let his car roll down the bank. It was a scary wreck. But luckily, everyone was okay. Yeah, scary. But yeah, I think Larson won both the stages. Let me see here. No, my bad. Yes, there was some strategy there with that. I think with that, it was a late race caution there. Not late race stage caution there with the 0 and the 44. That then led some strategy. The 41 of Sheldon Creed, the 41 of Sam Mayer, stayed out in there, and then he was able to stay out on old tires and run a couple laps out front and win stage 1, so that was a big deal for him. Got some points there. But then the rest of the race was kind of straightforward, and Larson dominated. It was fun to watch Larson work his way through the field. He was lapping cars so fastly, so well. I'm trying to think how many cars were lapped down in this race. It doesn't tell me if they were laps down, how many laps, but there was a good amount of cars that were lapped down at the end of this race because of Larson. We did see, the best competition Larson had in the Xfinity Series was Justin Allgaier. He was leading a couple laps early in stage 3, but then Larson kind of bumped him up the racetrack. I don't think Larson was trying to get into him, but it just kind of worked out there where Larson maybe got a little too hot in there and bumped up Allgaier, but it wasn't going to matter. I think Larson was way better than Allgaier. And then later in stage 3, we saw an incident with Mason Massey and Justin Allgaier. Mason Massey was coming up the racetrack. Allgaier was coming down the racetrack. And it looked like Allgaier came down when he hit Mason. Mason kind of spun out in the racing groove. And then a bunch of cars checked up. Tire zones checked up. But then the one driver that did not check up was William Sawatch. He was still halfway in the turn when this incident happened, yellow lights, and he just didn't slow up quick enough, and he ran in the back of Kyle Zillich, destroyed the back of Kyle Zillich's car. Zillich still, I think, finished the race pretty well. I'm trying to think where he finished. I finished 12th. William Sawatch's day was done. He finished 34th, and the spotter was telling William Sawatch to check up multiple times. William did not check up quick enough, and then William blamed his spotter, saying that he didn't get the message from his spotter quick enough. And that just freaking makes me mad. Look, never going to ever get to experience what it's like to drive a full-powered NASCAR stock car. But the fact that you first, this is during his post-race interview after getting wrecked out, he blamed his spotter for this wreck. Guess what? William Sawatch is the one that has the gas pedal and the brake. I mean, I just don't get that at all. That of course, spotters have been known to wreck drivers and be accountable. Of course, spotters have been known to cause drivers getting wrecks. They just misjudge or call the driver clear when he wasn't clear. But to come out and just call out your spotter and say that he's the reason that you got in this wreck and you weren't able to check up, it just kind of frustrates me. Kyle Zillich said, I'm trying to find a quote. Yeah, he says, he feels like it's every week with me and William Sawatch. That was talking about the incident with William. William won the Arctic East Championship last year, and so far this year he has 0 top 5s, 2 top 10s. Currently he's 23rd in points, so he's not doing too great. He's outside the playoffs. He has a lot of hype around him. He's 18 years old, very young, very talented, but just making a lot of mistakes, I feel like, especially for a guy that has a lot of potential, or at least it's being hyped up. So I don't really like that. Not a great look for him. Another incident that I felt like he could have. I know things happen fast at Bristol, but just kind of very odd that he couldn't get checked up quick enough. And also, first thing he does is blame his spotter for why he ran in the back of Kyle Zillich. I'm not a big fan of that. Do not like that at all. That was really it from the Xfinity Series race. Yeah, Larson domination. Congrats to him. I'm not sure how many more races Larson has in the Xfinity Series. I don't think he's doing the double, the triple at all where he's running trucks or Xfinity Cup rest of the year. But, yeah, really impressive drive by Larson. But it's what he does, man. It's what he does, I guess. In the Truck Series, man, Chandler Smith gets his first win in the Truck Series with Front Row Motorsports' first win in the Truck Series since 2022 because he spent the last 2 years at Xfinity. Led 127 laps in the 250 laps. This race was solid. Had some early instances. There was a big rant with the 1, the 33, the 52, the 98 there. It was kind of like the 33 of Frankie Muniz was getting lapped, and I guess the 98 of Tyler Jesse kind of misjudged where the 33 was going to wreck. Ruined those guys' day. But yeah, really this was dominated by Chandler Smith. Chandler Smith won stage 1, dominated that first stage, and then stage 2 he was dominating that stage, but then he kind of had some tire wear come into the factor. I think the teams only had like 4 sets. And we saw Bailey Curry come on strong to win stage 2. But then in stage 3, it was more of, I guess, Chandler Smith. But then we saw Rod Chakaruth. Rod Chakaruth led 85 laps. I believe he had 50-lap older tires, too, at the beginning of stage 3. So that just tells you that tire wear does not matter at this track at all. But yeah, it was really impressive by Rod Chakaruth. He got passed there late. There was a late race restart with Chandler Smith, Corey Heim. Chandler ended up passing Corey Heim there. So that was kind of a quick recap there. Bailey Curry, after winning stage 2, he finished, I'm looking at my notes here, the scoring sheet. He finished 23rd. I believe he had some mechanical issue or something broke, I heard. So that really stinks for him, but really impressive run. Your top 10 was Chandler Smith, second Kyle Larson, third Corey Heim, fourth Tyler Ankrum, fifth Ben Rhodes, sixth Lane Riggs, seventh Jake Garcia, eighth Kane Honeycutt, ninth Rod Chuckaruth, and 10th Giovanni Ruggiero. That was a track race. Yeah, I forgot to kind of talk about this cup race overall. I mean, yeah, it was a bad race, but some of the finishing order of this race I want to go back to. I'm sorry. Kyle Larson finished first, second Denny Hamlin, third Ty Gibbs, fourth Chase Briscoe, fifth Ryan Blaney, sixth William Byron, seventh Ross Chastain, eighth Christopher Bell, ninth A. John Allmendinger, and 10th Austin Dillon. Carson Hocevar 11th, 12th Josh Berry, 13th Justin Haley, 14th Kyle Busch, 15th Chase Elliott, 16th Brad Keselowski, 17th Austin Cindric, 19th Bubba Wallace, and 20th Ryan Preece. But great finishes for Denny Hamlin. Well, Denny Hamlin finishing top two the past three races. He's really, all those questions about Denny Hamlin not having a new crew chief, he's 44 years old, this and that. He's silencing the downers on this one. Also, Ty Gibbs, another top 10. I think Ty Gibbs, this is good for him going into the break. Two back-to-back top 10 finishes. It's good for him. Excuse me. Oh, man. Sorry, guys. Chase Briscoe, fourth. Good run for him. Fifth, Ryan Blaney. Had some strategy there, but another good finish for Ryan Blaney. He needed that. William Byron, like I talked about. Ross Chastain, another top 10 for Ross. Good for him there. Christopher Bell, seventh. I did want to talk about, Chase Elliott. He finished 15th. Kind of surprising for Chase. I thought he's always been pretty good here, but did not have the speed he needed here. Even Kyle Busch, not surprising for Kyle Busch. But then, Justin Haley. Justin Haley was running the second in this race, I believe, at once, and then just some strategy. I don't think maybe a slow pit stop cost him. Did not have a great finish there. Carson Hocevar, good rebound from him. He was running top 5 in this race and then had that bad pit stop there. Brad Keselowski, he finished 16th. Okay run there. But Ryan Preece finishing 20th and Chris Buescher 25th. Joe Nagano 24th. Not the greatest of runs for the Ford camp there. I feel they're pretty good in the short tracks. SVG we talked about wrecked out in this race or finished. He didn't wreck out, but he finished 38th. Yeah, SVG is really struggling, man. I think SVG is going to be that guy like last year where Harrison Burton won the Daytona race, 34th in points. I think SVG could be the guy that gets into the playoffs being 30th in points. But yeah, I think Brad Keselowski needs to step it up. I think he's at least the guy I'm most worried about. He's my guy, but he has not run great. He's still 30th in points, man. Almost 10 races in the season. So also Alex Bowman, he led 39 laps, then had a mechanical issue. Alex Bowman has not run great recently. I felt like I think he finished in the 20th last week. So definitely need to find some momentum. But to finish it off, guys, it is the off week. Easter weekend is this weekend. ARCA, Xfinty and trucks are going to be at Rockingham. The return of Rockingham, first time a NASCAR series has been at Rockingham since 2014. It's a really newly repaved Rockingham. They had a test there. It seems like it's going to be really fast. I cannot wait to watch the racing there on TV. Hopefully it should be fun, entertaining. No Cup Series racing, but at least we'll get some NASCAR racing. Next race for the Cup Series at Talladega. But overall, guys, give me your thoughts on what you thought about racing this week. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you watched the whole way through, I really do appreciate it. It means a ton. Overall, guys, stay tuned to lots of content on my social pages from TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, you name it. Appreciate you guys watching. See ya next week on the Rolling the Bottom podcast after Rockingham for Xfinty and Trucks.